Hello, today is Monday, January 24th, 2022. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. This is the second part of the two-part podcast where I have brought together 6 of my favorite LB3 and TC2 colleagues who have been active participants on Staying Connected over the past year. And what we're going to do is continue our review in a rapid-fire way of looking at what was important in 2021. Next up is my good buddy and TC2's technology director, David Lee. So, David, Laura touched on the legal impact of hacks and security violations at enterprises, but why do they happen in the first place?
Joe, thanks for having me today with this esteemed group at the start of the year here. Well, firstly, the SolarWinds hack dominated the news cycle at the very end of 2020 into 2021. And just firstly, we went on into 2021, including a joint NSA, FBI, and CISA security advisory published in the springtime and then republished again with an update describing how the Russian SVR Foreign Intelligence Service targets our large enterprises, government agencies, and also allied networks, and detailed those vulnerabilities the SVR is leveraging as well as the techniques they're using. So why do they happen? They happen because nation-state actors or their proxies are doing a lot of this, or gangs that are being subsidized possibly by nation-state actors doing it, as Laura mentioned about the increase in ransomware. And so they happen because normally the software behind all of this, a lot of it is trusted. And as we found with SolarWinds hack in terms of the update process and the software supply chain or the bill of materials for the software may not be well known by the enterprise. And CISA recommended to understand that software a lot more detail. And the reason for that is more recently, just last month, the Apache Log4j logging software, which probably everyone, that's listening on this call may not be familiar with, but it's critical software that's embedded in a lot of enterprise software from your large software providers. And it became a critical vulnerability worldwide because it got hacked. And it impacts industrial equipment, network servers down to printers. It impacted Cisco, Oracle, AWS, VMware, firewall providers like Fortinet. So the flaw occurred because this open source software got into the software supply chain or in the products. It's free to use as all open source, but it needs to be updated, just like the SolarWinds, and it has to be monitored and understood in the software supply chain of all your software. So with the increasing incidence and sophistication of these cyber attacks, all enterprises need to reevaluate their security systems, assess their networks and their software supply chain, and possibly replace the software and equipment to protect their production lines, intellectual property, and their customers.
Okay, interesting. So another area that I know you've been doing quite a bit of work in is UC, Unified Communications.
Right. Cloud is and has been winning in the UC, Unified Communications, as well as the contact center as a service space. Having said that, there are lots of exciting UCaaS and CCaaS solutions and features and many providers that can provide these services anywhere in the world globally. As a firm, we've been doing a lot of UCaaS and CCaaS work lately. In the UCaaS space, Microsoft is doing extremely well in this space with its product Teams. There are other providers, of course, including Cisco, WebEx, Teams, Google Meet, Zoom, RingCentral, which are also the same, by the way, as Avaya Cloud Service, as Avaya simply is repackaging RingCentral, and Amazon Connect. But as we said before, UCaaS and CCaaS solutions are being introduced all the time and products keep getting enhanced. So it's quite daunting for the average enterprise to keep up with the evolutions and the roadmaps and the confusing branding. Just as one example, Cisco acquired BroadSoft, a well-known provider to actually the providers of the service and software that called UCaaS and CCaaS. And BroadSoft at the time had 19 million business subscribers in 80 countries. And many carriers, for instance, use them. It rebranded, that is Cisco, when they acquired it, BroadSoft to BroadWorks. You go on the Cisco website, and it's still a standalone, robust solution offered by Cisco next to its WebEx Teams product. So you can see it does require some digging and understanding with this confusing rebranding.
Okay, thank you, David. I agree with what you said about Microsoft. Now, Teams does seem to be getting a ton of mind share with our clients, If you add Teams calling into a Teams client, you can also get off-net calling, which does beg the question, who's your telco provider going to be in the future? Will it be a traditional telecom company, or will it be Microsoft, or some hybrid combination? Anyway, next up is my buddy Kevin DiLallo. Kevin is a partner at LB3, and he is also the resident wireless expert. And we laid down some really interesting podcasts covering wireless in 2021.
Yeah, Joe, we sure did.
So what happened in 2021?
Well, 2021 was a big year for wireless communications. First, the FCC completed the C-band spectrum auction, which resulted in Verizon Wireless and AT&T winning licenses for frequencies that will finally make 5G a reality in this country. In the process, they shelled out billions of dollars, which will be a drag on their balance sheets, but that's another story.
So 5G has been in the news a lot lately.
You can say that again. But the U.S. has made some missteps along the way, Joe. Unlike other countries which saw the value of mid-band spectrum early on and relied on it to build their 5G networks, the FCC instead focused on much higher and much lower frequencies, both of which proved to be unsuitable for widespread 5G rollouts. When the American regulators finally came to their senses, AT&T and Verizon Wireless were desperate for spectrum that could make 5G viable. T-Mobile, when it acquired Sprint, already amassed more than enough mid-band licenses to build a first-rate nationwide 5G network, and consequently it found itself leading the pack in 5G. AT&T and Verizon Wireless have already begun to deploy their new mid-band cell sites, though the airline industry and the Federal Aviation Administration have thrown a major wrench in the works, claiming that the use of those same 5G frequencies for mobile communications will interfere with altimeters on commercial and freight airplanes and create very dangerous conditions for planes landing and taking off at major airports. A 6-month inter-industry compromise has been reached, but the final chapter is far from being written.
And AT&T is also playing hardball or savior to the masses, right?
You could say that. In a related development, AT&T has petitioned the FCC to limit the amount of mid-band spectrum any one carrier can control in a particular geographic market, calling out T-Mobile specifically for controlling more than 30% of the mid-band spectrum in certain markets. The FCC has already established 30% as the limit for any carrier with respect to higher and lower frequency licenses. And as AT&T correctly points out, any concentration of valuable spectrum in the hands of a single carrier is bad for competition. In our view, Joe, the FCC is likely to side with AT&T on this one, and T-Mobile will be required to offer its excess spectrum holdings to its competitors at auction.
And why is 5G so important?
Well, Joe, what we've seen so far is that the real promise of 5G, at least last year, wasn't in faster voice, data texting, or mobile apps, but in private 4G and 5G networks and the Internet of Things. Manufacturers around the world jumped on the private network bandwagon in 2021 to improve automation in their factories, enhance their flexibility to respond to changing market conditions, which was essential during the pandemic, what with all the supply chain disruptions, and to reduce headcount and thus blunt the impact of employees calling out sick. The Internet of Things has also continued to explode, with use cases becoming more creative and ubiquitous thanks to faster networks and improved endpoint security.
Security has become a big topic in wireless, hasn't it?
It always is, and last year was no exception. T-Mobile had another high-profile data breach involving its customers and potential customers. It reminded our clients of the imperative for robust privacy and security terms and conditions in their wireless agreements. I must say, for their part, even the carriers seem to understand the importance of this issue now. And one more thing, Joe, the major U.S. wireless carriers have announced that the sunset of 3G services will take place this year. This change will disrupt service and require upgrades to millions of Internet of Things endpoints and everyone's beloved medical alert services. As early as next month, someone may be trying to say, "I've fallen and I can't get up," but the message won't go through because the 3G frequencies that their device uses have been repurposed for 5G. We haven't seen a year with this much wireless activity, both good and bad, in a long time.
Thanks, Kevin. Let's wrap up this rapid fire podcast with Ben Fox, one of TC2's managing directors. Now, I've worked with Ben for over 20 years, going back to our days when we were at Deloitte Consulting in the UK. Heck, Ben, you were just a young pup when we started working together at Deloitte. Now you're the MD of TC2.
Well, Joe, I don't think I've ever been referred to as a pup before, but I'm sure I should say I owe it all to you, not least because, of course, you have final editing rights to these podcasts.
Yeah, that is true. However, you have had a great career. And let me just point out that you're often involved in some of the more complex services and outsourcing deals that we do at TC2. What are your thoughts on that market and the demand for managed network services in particular as they continue to evolve?
Well, good question, Joe. I think we'll continue to see much the same trends in 2022 as we've seen for the last couple of years. So in particular, that the large systems integrators, I think we'll see them continue to win managed network services deals away from the carriers. In the deals we support, Joe, the SIs simply have a stronger proposition right now in a number of areas. And one key area is that they're stronger than the carriers in terms of really understanding and delivering automation in managed network services. And this really gives them an advantage in offering a lower price point to their customers and driving efficiencies, which means further pricing reductions over the term of the contract. And then another advantage, I think, for many of our customers compared to carriers is that the SIs are simply more willing to customize their services to align with our customers' requirements. So a good example is the SIs are always readily willing to work in a customer's ITSM tool. And that's increasingly a priority for our large global enterprises clients, many of whom have made significant investments in ITSM tools such as ServiceNow. So the carriers with their kind of factory model managed services propositions, they're far more hesitant to use the customer's tools, which we see seems to put them at a key disadvantage to the more flexible SIs out there.
Okay, thanks, Ben. So finish us off here. Besides playing more football with your mates, what are you looking forward to doing in 2022?
Well, apart from that, I'm looking forward to working on more cloud deals and supporting our clients in their negotiations with the likes of AWS and Microsoft Azure and GCP. Cloud is truly a massively growing area at the moment. And I think we're beyond the point of companies thinking about where they can leverage the cloud. And increasingly, simply running applications and workloads in the cloud is becoming the default for large enterprises. And what that means is that the cloud vendors are now amongst our clients' most strategic and their largest IT service providers. And accordingly, those deals need to be more carefully negotiated than ever before. But often, because those deals have grown out of far smaller initial agreements and far smaller initial spend levels, they've not previously been subject to the level of commercial and contractual scrutiny that large strategic IT contracts typically receive. You know, there are a lot of blockbuster cloud deals going on, and they will continue to be so, I think, during 2022. So, I'm looking forward to helping our clients take full advantage of these cloud services, but crucially take advantage of cloud services based upon a firm foundation of both market-leading pricing and, of course, robust commercial and contractual terms.
Okay, thank you, Ben, and thank you to the rest of our team. This has been a great podcast, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to share your insights. 2022 is going to be a great year with lots happening in the ICT space. If you do need some advice, we are obviously ready to help. So please give any of us or our LB3 and TC2 colleagues a call or send us an email. You can also stay up to date by subscribing to Staying Connected, by checking out our new content on our websites, and by following us on LinkedIn.